Everybody, welcome. It's really strange times right now, and I had honestly kind of thought maybe this week is not the right time to have another one of these Zoom side chats with everything going on. And then I got to really thinking about it, and I expressed this to Lauren earlier in the week, and my thought process was, if we want to affect change in our communities, quite possibly one of the best ways we can do that is to expose young people, different cultures, different places. And I can't imagine a more important time to do that than during the very, very turbulent middle school years. So I told Lauren this, and I was like, I think, it's more important than ever actually to have you share what you're doing with students, and to let them all know about the sorts of activities you're doing and how you're bringing your students to the world and the world to your students. So just kind of as a way of introduction, I met Lauren a couple of summers ago at the ESRI user conference at the Education Summit. And I don't quite remember how we all bumped into each other, but I was there with Will Tollefson and Andrew Joyner and some folks from ETSU. And
Because y'all were so loud. That's why it was.
oh yeah,
Y'all
probably.
were a loud group.
And
You
we got to,
recognized our Tennessee accents.
That was another thing.
and so we all got to hang out and talk, and we got to learn a lot about the things that Lauren is doing in her middle school classroom. And since that time, we've tried to steal a bunch of Lauren's really good ideas to help do some training here in Tennessee. I'll show you pictures here in a little bit, but Lauren's got, she's been featured as in the GeoMentor spotlight. She's been featured in the ESRI newsletters. She's got some different projects online. She does this amazing mythical cartography workshop. So anyway, she's doing a really, a lot of awesome things in the classroom. And so we're really, really happy to have you here, especially because you're probably calling in from your lunch break there in Portland today.
It's all good. Fits well.
Very, very good. Well, so I sort of sent Lauren some questions to sort of kick us off, and we'll start with those. But if the conversation shifts from there, that's awesome. If y'all have any questions at all, I'm keeping an eye on the chat window. So if anything comes up, type it in there. Or this is very informal, so feel free to. Everyone should have the ability to unmute themselves. So feel free to unmute yourselves and just interrupt as long as that's good with you, Lauren.
Yep, that's great.
Awesome. So first of all, tell us a little bit about the school where you teach and your role in that school and how that's kind of evolved over time.
Great. Thank you for the introduction, Michael, and thanks everyone for being here because really, well, two things. I agree with Michael that right now the world is just on fire and it's hard to figure out what to prioritize right now. And I want to also say, I don't know, Michael, if you want to say anything now about Derek speaking after I'm done, but giving some time and space to talk about what we can do as educators in particular to advance conversations around race and equity right now.
Yeah, actually, thank you for the reminder, since I did pester Derek and ask him to join us and be part of this. So yes, in case you did not see it in the original email that went out, in light of everything that's going on, I reached out to Dr. Alderman here in the geography department to kind of host, we're calling it a very informal virtual town hall, just as a forum to discuss ways that we as educators, we as students can work to help with, the supporting our communities, working towards ending systemic racism. So Derek's conversation with this, our conversation with Derek's going to start about 4:15 at the end of Lauren's session. So y'all are all welcome to stick around for that conversation as well. But we understand that we're sort of doing this double header today. So if you don't have the time, we completely get it.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I just really appreciate you making space for that. I think, though, that going back to what Michael said at the beginning, too, thinking about, is this the time to talk about GIS education? I mean, my answer is always going to be yes, because I'm biased, but I think it's more now than ever for a couple of reasons. And I'll get into those as we go a little deeper into what it is I do with GIS education. But I'll start by giving you some background on who I am and what I teach first. So the basic answer is that if you are interested in really teaching kids how to investigate issues of equity, GIS is the tool. if you want to teach your students how to communicate effectively to affect change, to make a brighter future, GIS is the tool. And not only do I believe that just because I'm into it, but my students, the way they respond to the technology I introduce them to shows that they believe that they're like, oh, you're letting us engage with something real that really makes a difference. That is what we want. So that's kind of the background to everything that I'm doing here. So I am a middle school teacher. I've been teaching for 12 or 13 years now, and middle school is really where I have found my home. It's a fun transitional place between, young kids and then kind of becoming your own person. And because of that, it really lends itself to a lot of autonomy and wanting to wrestle with the bigger questions in life. So I think it's perfect for spatial analysis. I teach at the French American International School here in Portland, Oregon. It is a private school. I was a public school teacher for the first 10 years of my career, and I tried to get GIS programs launched before, but two things happened. One was just there was never any time for it. In the places where I was, I just heard a lot of no's. But the other was the technology just wasn't quite there yet. So thankfully, through my journey of exploring GIS myself and what platforms are available that work for school age kids, specifically middle school, high school is what I was interested in, I've been able to really tap into a world of resources that is so ready for as many teachers as want to use it. And that's why I'm excited to talk to y'all, because I really just want to spread the word that whether you are going to go into GIS and then be a GeoMentor who can support this technology getting into classrooms, or if you are going to be a teacher, you can find a way to help put this technology in the hands of teachers and students in classrooms. It's all there, and it's more supported than ever. So that's kind of who I am.
GeoMentors.
Say again.
So you mentioned GeoMentors.
Yes.
There may be some folks on the call who don't actually know about that program. Can you just address that for just a minute?
Absolutely, and I'm gonna pull up a little screen share for that too.
I think I've got it set up where you can take control of that. If not,
Okay.
let me know.
Let me just make sure I'm in the right spot. I've got fun computer situations here because they don't give us good computers as teachers, and then you get to take those home for COVID. Isn't that fun? So then you're trying to teach technology on a dinosaur. And that's the wrong one, hang on. Here we go. All right, can y'all see the blue and gray screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And here we go. My computer is that slow, I apologize. So we'll come back to here. So you get to see all of this fun stuff. Let's talk about GeoMentors.
Oh, well, if we're going the wrong direction, we can come back to that.
It's fine. We can start with that and then work our way backwards. I don't mind at all. It's just that my computer is slow is all. Okay. So GeoMentors is an important place to talk about how you can get involved in a classroom, because I'm a teacher in a classroom, but no matter what you do with GIS, you can get involved in a classroom. No matter what subject you might teach, or if you are not a K-12 teacher, you do something else, but you want to spend some time in a classroom introducing GIS to kids. So when I was given a technology class at my current school, and they said, we don't care what you teach, it just needs to be technology, I said, perfect, this is the opportunity I've been waiting for, and started creating a class around GIS. And it's called GIS Design because it's about designing maps as much as it is about the technology and the spatial analysis. And when I started creating that class, I really was at a loss for where the resources were that I was supposed to use. It was hard to find them at the time, and also who could help me just brainstorm a good progression. So I got in touch with GeoMentors to make that happen. And what you can do here is go through the AAG, which is the American Association of Geographers, and they're basically just providing you with a network to say no matter where you are teaching or no matter where you work, let's connect teachers who want to use GIS technology with people who are good at GIS, so that if the teacher's like, well, I can figure this out, but I can't really go above this, I need an expert to help me problem solve, then you've got this great partnership that can help you get to the next level. So I definitely encourage anyone and everyone to sign up for this, either as a teacher looking for a GeoMentor or sign up to be a GeoMentor yourself. And you do not have to be great at GIS to do this. You just have to have this much more experience than the teacher who needs help. And that could be very little. It could be just like how to sign in to ArcGIS online and create something. I think everyone can do that. So here it is. It's this simple. You decide which one you want to be, a GeoMentor or an educator. So this is kind of where I got started. I started talking to some professors at the university where I had got my master's, and I had taken some GIS training, and they really helped me brainstorm my way through my first year. And now I've got a really robust program that I'll give y'all some highlights about here.
Yeah, let's just get into it. Show us the cool stuff you're doing with your students, because that's what everybody wants to see, I'm sure.
Awesome. Okay. Well, whoop, and I minimized the wrong thing. Can you tell that I'm a technology teacher? That is actually part of my call to all other teachers, though, is like, you don't need to be good at this, y'all. You just need to be brave enough to give it a try. You don't need to be a natural as far as technology goes. Okay. What I tried to start
Let me interrupt
with,
for just a second.
yes,
So
please.
as Lauren is talking, I'm putting some links down in the chat. So I've got a link in there to the GeoMentors if you want to sign up. I've got a link in there to Lauren's school's ArcGIS Online page. So I'll put other resources in there where you can learn more about Lauren as we go.
Thank you so much. And also I will just say that the slideshow that I'm kind of showing you some resources on, and it will have some links, I've got a link to that as well that I'll share with y'all. Basically, the start of my GIS program is to think of kids as visual communicators. We all know that kids communicate like this. There are memes, there are emojis. This is a basic communication with my nephew, who is in middle school, where it's basically just a back and forth of a bunch of memes and GIFs, and they're not writing paragraphs, y'all. And I'm sure you're aware of that. But what that tells me is that no matter what group of students you are talking to, they are already visual communicators, and maps are visual communication tools. So this is a perfect fit for the generation that we're teaching these days. I feel like the more that we have kids and teens that are communicating visually, that means we need to be preparing for that inevitable future where they're all in control, and that's the way they're going to be doing business, making decisions. It's going to be with visual media. So why not start now and help them think about ways to communicate ideas using maps instead of waiting until they're in a college program, especially because they're digital natives and they can handle it. That's, you know, the thing that always impresses people about what my students can do is like, oh, I didn't learn that till undergrad. Well, it's not hard for a kid who has never known a world without a touchscreen. This is just a natural thing for them. So my argument, and this goes back to the GeoMentor thing and the teaching thing, is that means that you, if you are on this call, you at least know something about GIS. You can be one of those people, one of those champions to say GIS is something that kids can use, whether you're going to be in a classroom or not. So what I like to do is try to show folks a couple of resources that I've either created or found that make it very, very easy to go into a classroom and get kids engaged with communicating with maps. So if this progression is working for you, Michael, I'll show 3 of the main ones that I really like there.
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I like to start with is the concepts of how we communicate visually. Kids haven't really thought about maps. The first day in class, I usually ask them, you know, what maps do you use? And they're all just going to say Google Maps or Apple Maps. And they've never thought about how it works. They just know it's always there for them when they need it. That's it. It's a black box. They've never thought any deeper than that. So I start with a couple of main concepts for them, like what are layers and what is the importance of layers? Because if you think about it, spatial analysis doesn't happen until you have layers. Until you can see several patterns and relationships on top of each other, you're not really making connections. You're really just using Google Maps to get from point A to point B. So I really build in some activities that have to do with what are layers and why are they, how do they help us process information? Then we go through a little bit of the history of cartography using Play-Doh, which is my students' favorite day, whether they are 8th graders or 6th graders. I tell them it's kindergarten day and they absolutely adore it. And I've tried it with adults too. It's ageless. If a kid can play with Play-Doh, they want to do this. I've got this activity typed up to share with y'all. I'll show you a little bit of it. And then we also do some hands-on building, really hand in hand with while I'm teaching them the digital tools. Because I don't want them to sit through my entire class and just sit on the computer the whole time. As engaging as that is, we also try to engage with some deep conversation and some physical activities. So this is kind of what it looks like in my classroom when they're not sitting on computers. We are building, we are showing our learning, maybe through labeling, maybe through creating something, and we're engaging in cartography in multiple forms. And I'll show you some examples of these as we go. So
this looks like, I think I can see them drawing cross sections of
Yep.
some things. Oh, that's
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, and we'll get into kind of the details of the progression with this one as well, but that's definitely everybody's favorite. And a close second is what you see over here with the kids on the floor drawing their own mythical worlds. And I've got resources for y'all to be able to do that as well.
Hi, Lauren. I'm Joshua Kenna. I'm a professor
Hi.
here at UT in education. I came a little late, but
No worries.
so I see you said you're a tech coach first.
A
Like
tech
that's the
teacher.
primary
Yeah.
title. And so I like that you're using a non-tech item to introduce them to eventually tech, something that they're familiar with. Is that kind of the justification as well?
Yeah, it is a little bit. Part of my belief system is that kids all have different learning modalities. So if I only teach in one way, I'm only going to, get 20% of the class to really learn. So what I try to do is, since this technology class is required for all students, is to make sure that we do all sorts of different types of activities. We have days that we go outside and do field work. We have days where we take notes and watch videos. We have days where we build things, and we have days where it's really just sitting on the GIS. But most days are a blend of those, because honestly, middle school students, good luck having them sit still for too long. And my classes are actually an elective. I'm also a math and science teacher, so this is one of the things I do. So my classes are actually 2 hours long once a week. So there ain't no way I'm having kids sit on a computer for 2 hours and do what I want them to do. They'll sit on a computer for 2 hours, but they won't be doing what I want them to do.
Right. All right. Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, I honestly think it's good for everyone, and it's just a smart way of building conceptual understanding so that I tie the physical activities to the GIS that we do, and then they're like, oh, this is like when I put layers of cardboard together. I'm like, yes, that is what it is like. Yeah, absolutely. So the gist of this first activity that I do with all my classes is that they build a landform out of Play-Doh, and then they go through a process of deconstructing this to create a map.
I'm almost done.
And I'm going to let you listen to this for just a second so you get a sense of what's going on.
Nice.
So you can see here that this kid has already gotten at nose level, and he's drawn his mountain, a profile view.
Precision.
And then he used a pencil to make capture marks by standing up above his Play-Doh mountain, looking straight down. And now he's tracing, and he's measuring 1 centimeter intervals to chop up his mountain.
I know. After you make it, it's hard. So now you're going to have to go under that cave a little bit. Good job.
And this is the moment that when I show kids, I don't tell them what's going to happen, but when I show them this part, they all go like, and they run to their desks and they give it a try themselves. They're like, oh, I get it. I get what's about to happen.
No, this is garbage. Right, so now you can scrape it. You might have to use 2 hands and I can hold the page because you do have to scrape pretty hard. Whoa. Yeah, dude. Good. Okay, now what happens next? Good. Take the top off. Okay. Yeah.
Y'all see what's about to happen?
It's so cool. Yeah, that was right close to the edge, wasn't it? Good. See, it kind of helps that you have your other drawings to remember. Good.
So these are 10
And
year
I would
olds.
trace it first before
10
you
and
do your
11-year-olds in this
measurements.
picture.
Trace the base, because you don't want to forget that for later. Ask someone near you.
Or here's some classroom management going on too.
Walk around to get help from different people too. You don't have to
That's
just ask
first. I know
people.
y'all are taking other classes for that. None of this happens until that happens.
Thanks for letting me make this video, because this will really help my friend. I showed him pictures before, but I didn't have
We're almost done, I
videos, so he's
promise.
like,
You're gonna
I
get that
kind of
review.
get how to do it, but I need more examples.
This will be there, actually.
Yeah.
I just sort of messed.
Yeah, you can adjust it a little bit. This is not a perfect scientific way of doing it, but it's really good. Nice. Yeah, that looks so cool. Awesome. Okay, yeah. Now you can do the measurement for the next part.
Okay, so what was he creating?
Topographic map.
A topographic map with contour lines.
Yeah.
So the idea is, before we go into our first GIS and I explain what a base map is and what terrain is, or since we're a French school, we say topographie, so topography, so the kids immediately understand what that word means. We talk about, well, how is the Earth represented on a flat map or a digital map? And how do we get a sense of where up and down is? And then how do we put information on top of that? Oh, well, it must be layers. So the kids build not only a sense of the history of like, oh, at first map making was just drawn from profiles, and then it was drawn with hasher marks, and then it was drawn with contour lines, but they also get a sense of what are really the ways that we think about representing the Earth's surface on a flat piece of paper. And we have those conversations as part of that lesson. Now, this is something that I'll stop talking about this one for just a moment. This is something that if it's interesting to you, right over here, we've got typed up now as a partnership with ESRI from beginning to end, including the GIS maps that I use while I'm teaching this. So in addition to your lovely lesson plan so that you can, you know, put that in your binder or whatever it is they make y'all do these days. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I don't care anymore. But you can show the images of historical maps and how this all came to be, and then intersperse that, since the kids' attention span is so short looking at your screen. You show them this, you ask some questions, and there's some talking points here, and then they do part of the activity. And then you show them more and you guide them through the GIS a little bit, and then they go back to the activity. Back and forth. This is one of the main ways that I introduce kids to GIS, is that you're not going to just sit in front of a computer for this class, but you're going to balance your conceptual understanding and different ways of showing that with what you can do in a GIS. So this is all spelled out for you if you wanted to give this activity a try, and it ends with a lovely contour map like you see here. And then when they start seeing that in their actual GIS, they're like, oh, I'm at the top of a hill here. I'm at the bottom of a hill here. I'm in a valley. They have understanding of where this came from.
And there's a link to that.
So many things you can link to through that.
Yep, and I put a link to that lesson that's in the chat box as well. And Kelly's got a question for you, and
yeah,
we would have gotten to this eventually. So your background was first, your undergrad, if I remember it, was in education, and then you actually got a master's in geography and you did some GIS. So what prompted you to go back and get that master's degree if you were teaching already? And then what was it that sort of made you decide you wanted to start incorporating GIS into your classroom?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It is honestly just one of those life is what happens when you're making other plans kind of moments. So I taught in Birmingham, Alabama for my first couple of years. I definitely did teach, I focused on technology there. I didn't know about GIS very much yet, although I did have a wonderful professor that, since y'all are in the South, I'll name drop, Eric Fournier, who really pointed me in the right direction. When I wanted to move out west, you are required to have a master's degree to teach at all out here. So it was just a simple means of me saying like, oh, Well, if I'm moving out there, I have to get a master's. Well, what do I want to get a master's in? Well, it just so happens that one of the other things that I do with my life is I'm a park ranger. And so in my park ranger life, I was really struggling with trying to do a better job of explaining geomorphology. I didn't even know it was called that at the time, but explaining why do landscapes look the way they do. And so when I had to choose a master's, I said, well, that's the thing I want to learn because I don't think I can teach it to myself. There's a lot of things I can teach myself, but the field work, that kind of thing. And they had a strong GIS program at Portland State University. So I ended up almost getting a certificate in that. But my whole focus while I was doing GIS was, gosh, kids could do this. It was still ArcMap. But I started searching for what were the kinds of programs that were available to school-age kids. Well, at the time, the answer was nothing good. But as soon as Obama signed, bless him, the Connect Ed initiative, companies like ESRI committed to developing and supporting free online GIS platforms. And now we have this robust GIS, or excuse me, ArcGIS Online. That is the only thing I use with my classroom, and it can do everything a middle schooler or high schooler needs to do. I hope that kind of answers that question.
It answered it for me.
So then, I mean, even after my master's, I went to another middle school. I was teaching there. I tried to sell them on the idea. They weren't interested. So for me, it really just took getting to the place where I was offered a technology class and then saying, oh, I know what I can turn this into. But that's actually a great transition for me because I have now found out that you don't have to wait for that kind of specific opportunity. So I'd love to show y'all a set of resources that I think are the most accessible to everyone in classrooms everywhere, or accessible to you if you're just a GeoMentor and maybe you want to go into your child's classroom, or you are connected to a classroom in any way and you want to encourage a teacher who has never tried GIS that they can do it. That's really what I'm engaged with most of my time today. Bring this back up. Okay, so I want to rejoin this conversation here. Teachers are so overworked and have no time to learn anything new. If you had asked me when I was a public school teacher, hey, could you try this new thing? I would have been like, to hell with you. Am I allowed to curse on here? Okay.
Sure.
I have no time for anything. I can't even finish the work that I have right now. And even if I would love it, I don't have time to learn something new from you. So the way that I have convinced teachers at my school who have zero GIS experience to try GIS in their classrooms is to say, oh no, girl, I'll do it for you. I go into their classroom just one time for one class, and I show them how the kids teach themselves GIS because they are such digital natives and such visual communicators that the teacher doesn't need to know anything. The teacher is just there for the classroom management. Are you on task? And the kids are figuring everything else out. The way I start this is with this big thing you see on the screen called the AGO 5x5. This is an old document that is wonderful because it's 5 activities, 5 minutes long each, that teach your students every tool in ArcGIS Online that they need to know. And so you give it to them and they teach themselves the tools. And by the end of this, they can make their own maps, really. My first year, I thought I was gonna have to painstakingly teach them all these skills, and I was just wrong. I found out I could just give them this document and they would go. And that starts with 10-year-olds that I've tried. I'm sure it could go younger. So all of these activities don't require an account, don't require signing in. They just click on a link and follow these instructions. So the rules that I give them are, you need to read carefully and ask 3 then me. That means that if you ask for my help, I will say, give me 3 names of other students who you asked for help first, because if they can read, y'all, they can do this stuff. And very quickly they learn that they're basically never gonna ask me a question because they can just support each other. They know exactly what to do. And of course I pile on the praise when they do, like, ooh, Michael just helped Nathan figure this out. Yeah, Michael's got the expert skills. All that kind of stuff is flying in the classroom. So by the end of these 5 activities, they've learned all the basic tools to navigate a GIS. So then I encourage teachers to go for the next step, which is, I'm going to skip this one. We're going to come back to some maps that my students have made later because those are just fun to look at. And it just opened it up. Come on, slow computer. Nope. Sorry, y'all. Geo-inquiries. Geo-inquiries are a very strongly supported product by ESRI. And I'm not going to say who else is going to support them soon because I'm not allowed to, but a very well supported set of lessons that are supposed to be 15-minute activities if the teacher is just putting this on the projector and clicking around and showing students and asking questions, or an hour-long activity if you give all the kids laptops and have them go through the activities themselves. The format that geo-inquiries take is a one piece of paper, both sides, with instructions, just like the ones you just saw for the AGO 5x5. And if the kids follow the instructions carefully, they can learn to use a GIS for any subject. So let's see what this looks like. At my school, what I do is I keep an eye on the curriculum mapping of all the teachers in my school. And when I see, oh, hey, the 6th grade history teachers are about to study China, I send them an email and say, hey, I have a geo-inquiry about that. Would you like me to come in and teach your class for you while you watch to see how easy it is? And by the time they have watched that, they say, oh, I can do this by myself next time, and they do. So I now have a dozen teachers in my school who do this, and they had never seen a GIS before, and they do it by themselves. So here are geo-inquiries. They are organized by topic. If you click on one of these, let's see if there's one I know well. Let's go to world history. Cradles of civilization. This is one of the favorites at my school. So you probably already have a unit about cradles of civilization in the school that your child goes to, or that you are going to teach at, or however you're connected. All you do is you open the PDF that will always be here and is always updated for you because ESRI supports it. And this is what it looks like. You've got your standards, so you can paste those wherever you need to paste those to be checked up on. You've got a link that you click and it opens the map that you need, and this map is already loaded with all of the layers that your students will need. So they don't have to do anything complicated, they just turn things on, turn things off by following the instructions. So here's what this one looks like. I'm going to go to content, and they've already learned where the content button is by going through that AGO 5x5, so they can teach the teacher how to do that. And here we have all the layers that are needed for this activity. And the kids will be told when to turn them on, when to turn them off, and they even have bookmarks to zoom into particular civilizations that they will be exploring. When you click on these layers, you get information, and the kids are even told how to use that information in the process of the activity. So going back to the PDF instructions for this, what teachers love about this is that they can hold the physical piece of paper and it has all the answers on it while students are going through these steps. So everything that has an arrow here is an instruction that the students should do. Click the link above to launch the map. With the details button depressed, click the button, content. And then finally, there's a question mark. What was the general geographic location of those civilizations? And the answer is there in italics so that the teacher knows what the right answer is and can guide students in a group discussion to get there. I have done these geo-inquiries as silent individual activities. I've done them as group conversations. I've done them as small group conversations. I've done them as a think, pair, share, right? You're working with a partner in the classroom. This works in every format and any kind of class because you could see it's for every type of subject. In addition to this, the last thing that I'll say about these is this will be a link that I will share with you, Michael, to put in the chat.
Great.
There is now a brand new from ESRI introduction to geo-inquiries that also provides blank Google Docs for the students to just type their answers into that worksheet if the teacher who is teaching that really needs to have something tangible at the end that shows their answers that they can check. So this really leads you through everything that I just discussed, the parts of a geo inquiry, so you can go deeper. You can look into what is the difference between level 1 and level 2 geo inquiries, watch a quick video, and then right here at the end, you can see where the student worksheets live. And there's a blank Google Doc worksheet that you can share with students wherever you are. This is a powerful resource, and it's one that you don't have to be a technology teacher with your own class to be able to do this. You can just fit it into your existing curriculum anywhere it fits.
All right, Lauren, I agree. That is definitely probably the easiest way to introduce folks. So the bad news is we have 4 minutes
Great.
left. So
I'm glad that we talked about the ones we did, because those are the 2 main resources I wanted to share with y'all.
all right, so I'm going to hit you with 2 easy questions that we can
Great.
answer real briefly, and then I want to make sure we get a chance to talk about mythical cartography for a second.
Wonderful.
So for Joshua students who are on this call, who are working on their master's in education, is it worth it to go to the ESRI user conference?
100%. It was the biggest unlock for my my development teaching GIS. And the reason for that is, everybody, the GIS education world is still very small right now. Like I told you, when I started wanting to teach GIS in K-12, there weren't resources. That's how recent this was, like 6-7 years ago. So I was able to meet people like Michael and Will and the people who wrote this and who have founded this. And the reason that I was able to create my own lesson wherever it went was because I met those people and they said, oh, you have ideas, let's have you help us make content. The folks who are developing this stuff right now, they are looking for teachers to partner with. And the only way right now you can really become part of that movement is by meeting these people in person. So as soon as COVID changes our lives and we can gather in person again, go to San Diego, go to the ESRI UC, they're starting to really discount the pricing for that, so it's just like $100 to go. And there's a lot of hostels nearby that I stay in to make things real cheap. So make it happen. It's going to be a big part of your professional development.
I'm going to put a link to ESRI's Teachers Teaching Teachers Geography, and that's where they have a bunch of videos and a bunch of resources designed specifically for teachers. So Lauren, we got 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. Show us mythical cartography, because I think that is one of the coolest things that you do with your students.
And I've got it queued up for you. So let me pull that window up. Okay, so our fantastic maps. So this is, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a teacher, I steal stuff. I mean, we don't reinvent the wheel, we try to use what's already out there. So I was looking at some Dungeons and Dragons illustration videos because a student had forwarded them to me and was really interested in it. And knowing that I was a map teacher, she said, hey, could you create a class about this? I said, sure. And first I just made it a summer camp, and now it's a regular part of our curriculum. I will share with y'all the link to this Padlet. I believe you'll be able to access it and see some of these maps. But essentially what kids do is they use videos that are already on YouTube to learn basic cartography skills. And in so doing, I just organized this into kind of a structured curriculum where we talk about, well, what is the history of coastal vignetting, and what are we really trying to show here, and how has map making changed over time? And then I can show them what coastal vignetting looks like in a GIS as well. It's another way that I try to add in that tangible take on mapping, and I'm constantly connecting to, well, how could you do this or something similar on a GIS? So we do it hand in hand. You know, maybe we'll do this for half an hour during a class, and then we'll go to half an hour of computer time and come back to this. Helps the kids switch things up.
The other thing that I think is really great about the mythical cartography is it's a way to sneak in physical geography and some cultural geography, because you have to know, you know, how mountains form, and you have to know how rivers form, and the fact that like the V's point downriver. So anyway, it's a great way to sneak that stuff in, and the kids get to be super creative, but they have to think about physical geography when they're doing this.
Absolutely. They love it. It's one of the most peaceful, run itself kinds of classes I do. And I have now run this twice during the remote teaching time. And all of the activities that I'm showing y'all, like this is a special time for us because we've got these remote learning opportunities. These are things that kids can do from home without you having to do a bunch of preparation. That's what I'm trying to sell other teachers on, is like, hey, do you want something that'll take 6 weeks that you won't have to prepare anything for? But I'm going to send this to you, assign it to your kids.
All right, Lauren, it is 4:15 on the dot. So
Yeah.
let's take just a couple of minutes and see if anybody else has got questions, and then we'll start segueing in and transitioning.
That sounds great.
And is it okay if people on this call, if they have questions, is it okay if they reach out to you?
Please, and I will show you, I've got a new email address that I think I let you know, Michael, that I just kind of set up for that. I'll just go to my last slide here to show y'all where you can get this presentation. And there you go, there's my contact info as well.
Okay, awesome.
But
Thank you.
I'll also just put the link to this in the chat as soon as I can here. Please reach out.
Lauren, just wanted to tell you thanks for such a great presentation. And you mentioned a person I've known for quite a while, Eric Fournier. He and I were in grad school together.
Were you really? I thought I
Yeah.
recognized your name actually when I saw it. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Dr. Fournier is not only responsible for me being in GIS, but he's responsible for me being debt-free, because he told me, don't you dare go to grad school and pay for it.
Yeah, very good advice.
Very good advice. Best advice.
Well,
I've taken.
for 2 years, we held the Geography Faculty Development Alliance Early Career Workshop at University of Tennessee campus, and he was one of our facilitators, and 1 year co-director with me. So he's a superb guy.
I believe that. I believe he was president of CDAG for a while too. He was the first one who took me to a conference and showed me the value of that. Really tremendous educator. If y'all want to give him a follow on Twitter, he's regularly posting stuff that is just wonderful pedagogy, wonderful reflections on the moment we're in education.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's stellar.